So this short video is how to disassemble the upper steering shaft. So when you're in the trunk, you'll see this protruding. After you remove this, the longer column here with the two differential joints, and these bolts, by the way, have to be removed in order to get the shaft. If you want to get the shaft removed from these differential joints, you need to totally remove the bolt, because there's a groove in the shaft. So you can't just loosen the thread here and then try to heat this up and hammer it off. You have to remove the bolt out because there's a groove in the shaft. That's just an FYI to get these off if you want to. Now for the upper steering shaft, you have on the inside, the interior of the car, here's your steering wheel bolt with a washer and then the spline that your steering wheel sits on. And then this is the upper bearing that the shaft rides in right here. And on the lower side, when you're inside the trunk, you would see this protruding from about here outward, but you have the shaft, here's the bearing, the race, and then the bearing is kept in the chassis mount by this snap ring. And the first snap ring you need to remove is, FYI, there's a snap ring to remove this entire shaft here. From the trunk, just look up and undo this snap ring here and pull it off like this. And then you can gently tap on this, and this will, this upper steering shaft will then just come out easily. Then go inside the car and just pull it out. Then from the inside of the car, I took a wooden dowel. This is a 1-inch dowel. I took a wooden dowel and then slid it down the inside of the column shaft until it hit the bearing, and then hammered the bearing out into the trunk space. So then it just fell out. That was obviously after I removed the snap ring for this bearing. So there's two snap rings. One, you first undo this smaller snap ring, because the only thing, well, you can't get the bearing out until this is out, but you pull this, knock the shaft up forward, go in the inside of the car, pull it out. Then you're left with the bearing on the bottom edge of the mount. Remove this snap ring, then go inside the car and then put your dowel down the shaft and then slightly hammer that and get this bearing set out. Then that's all done. And now to get the upper, this is the bearing set for the upper. That you can see this spins around slightly in here. There's ball bearings in here. This upper bearing set was knocked out of the shaft by going inside the trunk with this dowel and then just clipping the edge of this, because it would go through this. So you just clip the edge and hammer it out. Then you'll hear this just fall on the inside of the car. So there's also a you can see the gap here on this ring. There's a gap here, and if you pry that open, you'll be able to take this inside race out of this bearing seal here. You can see it spinning there, but it's pretty junked up with a lot of crud in there. So I'm going to soak these in mineral spirits to clean it up a little bit. And I'm going to also soak this bearing in mineral spirits first. Some spray brake cleaner would be good on this. So clean this out, then repack this with some red lithium grease or red complex grease. Repack this with some red grease. And now these joints I soaked in mineral spirits for several days, and they're cleaned up. I might put a little POR 15 on these, but there's a small margin, there's a small rubber seal on each one of these joints. I don't know if you can see it right here, that I didn't want to damage with lacquer thinner or acetone to clean up the old grease in here. So I'm going to try the best I can to pack this with some grease in the joints here. And I might get a real small art paintbrush and POR 15 this, and you can see there's a little bit of paint flaking off this, like the top of this joint. I might put some POR 15 right here. Anywhere I see bare metal, I'll try to cover that up. And then the shaft, just right here, while there isn't any rust, because you really don't see water this far up, I'm going to nevertheless put a coat of POR 15 on this because I just don't like exposed metal when you don't have to. This interior shaft, this upper shaft, I'm not going to do anything with because that sits inside your steering column. So there you have it. This is how you can get this upper shaft out in a 68-912 by removing first this smaller snap ring, knocking this up, then this is out, then remove this larger snap ring from inside the trunk, and then run this dowel down the shaft and knock this bearing set out in the trunk space. Then once that's done, go in the trunk space and then run your dowel, wooden dowel, up the steering shaft and then knock this bearing set out. And then you have it. And then finally just remove this clip here and you'll be able to totally disassemble this bearing set. So there you go. Not too complex. Just something you're going to probably need to look at if you're pulling apart a 50-plus-year-old classic vintage Porsche. This happens to be a 912, 68. We'll catch you in the next video.